What's going on, everybody? It's Teach coming back at you with an updated 2-round 2025 NFL mock draft. We've hit that time of the year where this is primarily what the channel is going to be, on top of some position rankings. If you care to see those, definitely drop that down below in the comments if you do. But today we're going through 2 rounds. Don't have any trades for you. We're still kind of far out for that. Didn't have any QB movement that necessitated a trade. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into this. We're using the mock draft database simulator just in case you are new to the channel and weren't around last draft season when we were using this. But we kick things off with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Look, simply put, if it's not a quarterback going 1 overall, I think it should be Travis Hunter. He's one of the 5 best corners and one of the 5 best receivers for me in this class. To get that type of value, it is not quite Shohei Ohtani, because I think there's an argument that he's the best at both. I mean, 50-50 for God's sake. We've never seen that. And of course, he does it in the year he can't pitch, but we're not talking baseball in this video. But I think Hunter is about the closest thing we might see to that. And the more I see him play in college and see him survive 100-plus snaps, 120-plus snaps, the more I think there's a chance he could play, 60 defensive snaps, 20 offensive snaps, or something like that at the NFL level. But going to be a fun player to continue to talk about through the rest of this draft cycle. I think Jags could use an upgrade at both of those spots. Tennessee Titans. We're going to go to the offensive line here. TBD on Will Campbell. Is he going to be a tackle or guard? All I know is he's been rock solid now, going on a year plus in a row. He was fantastic in 2023. Been good so far in 2024. I hear some say they think he's going to be a guard. I'm going to wait until I get official arm length measurements. That's typically my barometer. That's my dictating factor. And yes, I know J.C. Latham's playing left tackle, but he was just playing right tackle at Bama a year ago. I also think Will Campbell paired with Bill Callahan, you could probably have him be the guy who flips over to right tackle. So lots of flexibility there for the Tennessee Titans, but they have got to continue to invest in that offensive line. All right, to the Cincinnati Bengals, they're going to get the number 1 player on my big board. That's kind of the downside of using, draft or current records. I don't think Cincinnati's going to stay in the top 3. Could be wrong. Been wrong before. Continue, and we'll have things that are wrong in the future. But I'm willing to stake that. I don't think the Bengals are going to be picking top 3. I know it's not great right now, but not that bad. But if they did, Mason Graham, that's how you shore up that middle of that defensive line, get some better run defense, add another impact pass rusher to a defensive line that right now is Trey Hendrickson and not much else. New York Giants, got to go quarterback. And I think Daniel Jones, we know he is. We know what he is. And whether you like him or if you're even a Daniel Jones defender, even if you're a defender, I think you're probably still seeing him as QB 20-ish in the NFL. And again, you're in the defender status. So if that's kind of the upside of what you're trying to defend, and that's like the high view on Daniel Jones, it's probably time to revamp that position. And if Brian Daboll's there, they're definitely going to take one, because drafting a rookie quarterback is going to be the last thing he can kind of latch onto is please keep me around. Same thing with Joe Shane. So if those 2 guys make it through the offseason without getting fired, they are definitely going quarterback. And I think Shadir Sanders, I think Dion would let him play in New York. I think Daboll's a really good offensive mind. Pair him up with Malik Neighbors. I think there's some pieces there that could lead to some nice success for the Giants. Indianapolis Colts, another team that, I don't think they're going to continue to pick in the top 5, but we'll see where Anthony Richardson goes the rest of the year. But this would be a dream scenario. Will Johnson. Memory serves, Kenny Moore is on an expiring deal. He's also out this upcoming week, so maybe that's just what's populating my head right now. But I believe he's on an expiring contract. Juju Brents sub Devil's 3 cone at the Combine a couple years back. 6'4", to me, that'd be a really freaky kind of slot weapon. Use him as an all-around thing, especially if you're going to, I don't know if Gus Bradley's ever going to adjust to a too high look. He's kind of cover 3, and that's his bread and butter. But if they ever did start to play too high, that type of 6'4" body as your nickel really shores up and kind of makes up for the fact that you're not playing a safety in the box. And that would open up for a world where Jalen Jones, and Will Johnson are your 2 guys on the outside. Will Johnson, CB1 in this class, don't need to talk about him. We all know he's crazy special. It's just going to come down to who's going to get the great value somewhere in the top, 5 to 10, with him falling and potentially quarterbacks, having to go higher, pushing him down the board, et cetera, et cetera. The New England Patriots, I'm going to go Kelvin Banks here. Another great offensive tackle. This one comes from Texas. Big fan of his game as a pass protector. When he connects on the run blocking side of it, it's awesome. I think he can be a little bit more consistent there, but the foot skills are there, the size, the play strength, I think it's all there. And spoiler, we're not done with this New England tackle position. It's bad. And I don't know if we're going to get to see Drake May this year. I'm at this point where, kind of going back to baseball, you put these young pitchers on inning caps, pitch caps. you might want to do the same thing with Drake May and hits. Just like, can we get through this year without him taking as many hits as possible? Like, that might be the best case scenario. That being said, this offensive line may also get Jacoby Brissett hurt, so maybe we will see Drake May this upcoming season. But I'm going to take Kelvin Banks because that left tackle spot, ooh-wee, do they need an upgrade there? To the Cleveland Browns, don't care. I don't care about the Deshaun Watson contract. The play's just not good enough. It's just not good enough. I think it was NFL Stock Exchange podcast, shout out to Connor and Trev, but described him as an uncompetitive quarterback. And it's sad that, that's the perfect way to describe him. I totally resonate with that description of him. He's going to continue to make guaranteed money. Sucks. The Browns really shouldn't have put themselves in that spot, but the only way to kind of overcome that would be a rookie contract quarterback. I think Carson Beck can be, point guard. You just kind of facilitate this offense. I think Kevin Stefanski, good play caller. There's still good weapons there in Cleveland. They do need to revamp that offensive line. We'll do that in the second round. To the Miami Dolphins, receiver 3 has been a major issue. Another team that, I don't know. With Tua, we'll see, how long he's out for. I don't think they're going to pick in the top 10. Wasn't something I would have predicted preseason, but if Tua misses enough time, maybe. And if, I don't know, they need to turn it over to Snoop Huntley. That's their only shot if they want to make the playoffs now. But nevertheless, looking for a receiver 3. Maybe that's Malik Washington. But you know who else really fits this team's MO? Great in space, big play threat, long speed. Luther Burden III. So I think that would just be like the rich get richer, the fast get faster. And now this offense has one more weapon you have to worry about. And it makes that rotation with Waddle, Hill, and throw in Burden that much easier to keep these guys fresh, keep their speed as big of an advantage as it is. To the Carolina Panthers here at 9. No other way to put it. If you believe Diana Rossini, we will not see Bryce Young the rest of this year. Time to move on. And that might be the best thing for Bryce Young because, look, Sam Darnold's playing some good football right now. Baker Mayfield's coming off a career year where he got a big contract. Matt Rule, I know, he's coming off a loss at Nebraska last week, but he got a new contract, new situation. Things are looking pretty good for him there. He gets to coach Dylan Raiola. So, hey, everybody who's left Carolina has ended up being pretty good because of it. So maybe that's the best thing for Bryce Young. That creates a vacuum there at the quarterback position. Dalton played good on Sunday. That's not a long-term answer, however. Enter Quinn Ewers, like the movement, like the arm talent for sure. We've seen more consistency. Unfortunately, he gets hurt again, but ultimately, I think an abdomen injury, not nearly as severe as what it maybe looked like when he got hurt in game. To the Chicago Bears here with the 10th overall pick, this is just, if there's a non-quarterback going 1, it's probably Travis Hunter for me, and then if not him, it's Abdul Carter. So the fact that he falls to 10 here is an absolute steal here for Chicago. You'd like to see him maybe bulk up a little bit more to fit that kind of base 4-man front that Eberflus is typically liked, but Nickel's the new base, and I see a super explosive edge rusher who, first year playing on the edge, but the hand refinement, the hand placement says he's way more advanced than a first-year starter there. And pairing up his athleticism with Montez Sweat, who does all the right things, plays with a lot of power, hard-nosed, sets the edge. I think that's a great tandem, gives you 2 different types of edge rushers. Unfortunate in this draft, I couldn't get this team an interior defensive lineman. That would have been the only other thing I would have loved to get them. The value wasn't perfect for me in the second round. Instead, we're going to double down on this offensive line. So don't worry, Bears fans. I understand that interior offensive line has got to get overhauled. We'll do that in the second round. Cleveland Browns here, the Baltimore Ravens here at 11. I'm going to go Nick Scorton. Him or the guy I'm going to ultimately have go here in a couple of picks, I think could have made sense here. But ultimately, I decided to go Nick Scorton. I think that's a position where this team can certainly get better. And I think from a moves standpoint, just who's got the deepest arsenal, he's probably the most NFL ready. Throw in the fact that he's 6'4", somewhere between 280 and 290. We'll get that official measurement at the combine, of course. Just kind of a different body type than Odafe Owe, David Ajabo, those dudes. And honestly, might have a higher ceiling. I don't know. Owe's a really fun player, but I feel like he doesn't finish sacks as much. I could see Scorton being the kind of finisher this defense is looking for at the edge position. At the 12th overall spot, I'm going to give the Denver Broncos a Tetairoa McMillan, kind of the wide receiver 1A, 1B with him and Burden. I've had mocks where he goes first. I've had mocks like this one where Burden goes first. But this is like Marquise Colston, power slot. This is Sean Payton's MO right here. I think Sutton could potentially be dealt at the deadline. I've been saying this whole season, I think Josh Reynolds is going to lead this team in receiving yards, and it kind of feels like we're heading in that trajectory. So Tetairoa McMillan, I think this team needs to kind of overhaul that wide receiver position. He could be that alpha that team is looking for the foreseeable future. I also think the areas he wins, short, underneath, get the ball into him in space. He's a great yak weapon. That fits up really well with Bo Nix. To the Los Angeles Rams here at pick number 13. I'm going to have Benjamin Morrison be the pick here. Definitely thought about offensive line, but at the same time, put my boy Trey White out of his misery. And I don't mean put him down. I'm not the Lions or Dan Campbell talking about Frank Ragnow here. I'm not going to go that far. If you missed it, just look up Frank Ragnow put down. You'll see it. It's a funny quote. But Trey White needs to hang it up. He's looking pretty washed right now. So Benjamin Morrison, doesn't have quite the size of the weight, physicality in the run game as a Will Johnson. But from a coverage standpoint, not terribly far off. Love Benjamin Morrison. I'm also a Notre Dame fan, so just to clear the air on that bias. But I think he goes beyond that. Typically, I have him going to the top 10. So Rams get him here at 13. That's some really nice value. Here at 14, I'm going to give the Arizona Cardinals Deion Walker. Think that interior defensive line definitely needs some work. Darius Robinson, inside-out flex guy, so you could kind of overwhelm an offensive line, overload them right with Walker, Robinson on the same side. You could have them both on the interior if you feel like that's the advantage against the interior offensive line. And Walker's athletic enough to where, down the line, I don't know, maybe not rookie year, but down the line, maybe he gets there as a pass rusher where you kind of give him the Chris Jones flexibility. Who's the guy you want to tee off on? Could definitely see that, and then him and Darius Robinson. That's going to be a really fun combo. Hoping the best for Robinson once he comes back healthy, and really like the fit with Walker going to Arizona there. Needing a big guy to plug the middle, plus the pass rush juice he brings to the table. San Francisco 49ers, thought about offensive line, but damn it, I always do that for San Fran. And let's look. I think it was Brett Coleman who tweeted out today, and I might misquote this stat, but go follow Brett. He's a great follow, obviously. If you're watching my content, you probably consume Brett Coleman content as well. But like 26, the Niners are in pass rush win rate right now, and that's with Nick Bosa. That's crazy. Ultimately, them and the Browns, I think the Browns offensive line, the 49ers D-line, you kind of come into the season and you just assume they're going to be good at it because they've been good for so long. Realistically, those units aren't as strong as you might think. So I think it's time that the 49ers put an investment in that position. Pierce has not been, standout number one overall pick like people thought maybe preseason he would be. Really, it's been kind of Tennessee's defensive line as a whole. But I still think the athletic juice is there. The traits are certainly there to where even if the production isn't awesome, there's going to be a team in the first round that says, oh, that guy with that bend, with that first step, he's a first rounder. And I feel like this is the body type the Niners have been looking to get and hasn't totally worked out, i.e. Drake Jackson, or kind of even like Leonard Floyd's not a super polished pass rusher, but lean and athleticism and bend, kind of, if he's going to win, that's what it's going to look like. But I think James Pierce could kind of be the first round investment version, specifically of like a Drake Jackson mold. Let's get to the Atlanta Falcons here at 16. It's going to be Emory Jones. Not that Caleb McGarry's played bad, but he is hurt right now. And next year, only $2 million dead cap hit. Could be a guy that you cut, save some cap space, put that on the defensive side of the ball at edge or corner or something. So Emory Jones also might be a guard, so we'll see. Official arm length, that's again going to determine my decision here. And if that's the case, I'm good with Chris Lindstrom at right guard. No need to change that position. But I do think there's an opportunity to move on from Caleb McGarry, use that money elsewhere next offseason. But this is a tough team, and I feel like I'm still kind of getting a feel for where the Falcons are. They're 1-2, just names on paper, probably should have beaten Pittsburgh week 1, but Kirk's coming back. Offensive line stood no chance against TJ Watt that game. It came Hayward as well. So kind of a tough break of the schedule there. Because I think if they got Pittsburgh week 14, that game could have definitely played out differently. Nevertheless, I'm still getting a gauge from where the Falcons are, where those weaknesses are. So going Emory Jones now, this will probably be a team that fluctuates pretty heavily until we get to like January. And I get a real good feel for what this team should be investing in for next April. Anyways, let's get on to the Dallas Cowboys, Ashton Jeanty. And sorry, Dallas fans, there's other places you could go with this pick. But, and let me also say, just like the Pittsburgh Steelers, running back's not going to fix your run game. So, Dallas hasn't been running the ball well. I don't think running back necessarily is going to fix that. You need Cooper Beebe to get better, right? There's going to be natural progression. He's going to come along with that run game across the offensive line. If there's potholes in the road, just because you buy a Lamborghini, those potholes don't disappear. It's kind of the running back to offensive line dilemma that the Steelers ran into, kind of falling into that same pit here with Dallas mocking Jeanty. But young guys, I think, will get better into year 2. And Jeanty does bring more juice than a Rico Dowdle, than Ezekiel Elliott. Plus, what he does as a pass catcher makes it really interesting to think about what he could do and what different elements he could bring to this offense. You had that with Pollard, but I think Jeanty's got way more juice in the open field, one-on-one, make a guy miss. I think Jeanty's way better in that spot than Tony Pollard is. And Pollard's not bad, but I think Jeanty, again, serious juice. Green Bay Packers here at 18. I'm going to go with Kenneth Grant. We're just kind of getting up there in age for a guy who's been awesome, but Kenny Clark, again, getting up there in age. I still like Devontae Wyatt, but this is, Jeff Hafley, 4 guys, pin their ears back. get upfield, get after the quarterback. Think they need to try to find that Kenny Clark replacement. Kenneth Grant, freaky athlete, also a solid run defender, which I think keeps those linebackers to the second level that much more clean. So I think an overall really good fit. Kind of just fits the Packers' MO in a lot of ways. And also I think his run defense specifically makes him a point of differentiation from LVN. Like Van Ness, if he plays more on the interior, I don't think he's ever going to be a high-level run defender. Grant certainly has a higher ceiling there at least in that respect. Then we get to the Las Vegas Raiders. This is going to be our last first-round quarterback. It's going to be Cam Ward. I think these would be if the draft was tomorrow and you said how many quarterbacks are going, I'd say 4. It'd be these 4. I've been really impressed with Cam Ward. Florida's not nearly as good as maybe we thought coming into the season, so we haven't really seen that great test for Cam Ward, but it's coming. And to be honest, I'm not really worried about it. Just his confidence in the offense, his confidence within the pocket, the arm strength certainly plays. And you get a couple of, yes, there's going to be some like, oh, why did he do that? But kind of like Josh Allen, I know that's a little different this year, but like the big plays are there too. So he certainly offsets even those kind of like, oh, why did he do that kind of plays. So yeah, I'm high on Cam Ward. Yeah, older prospect, but I also like guys who go from one school to the next, show that ability to take a step forward. To me, that's a huge vote of confidence. And you're seeing a guy not only doing it from Washington State to Miami, but before that, Incarnate Word to Washington State. So we've seen him make that jump a couple different times and handle that level of competition jump just fine. Alrighty, let's get on to the Washington Commanders. It's going to be Denzel Burke here at 20. Thought about Sicario Davis. Still think Siobhan Ravel could be a guy who goes in the first round, even with the injury. I'm not too worried about it. Guys come back from that injury all the time, just the same. But Burke, probably a little bit. I'm gonna contradict myself once we get to the Ravel pick, but that's okay. I just think, yeah, typically Dan Quinn, a lot of man coverage when it was in Dallas, but also a lot of zone when it was in Atlanta. And I haven't really dove too much in the Washington splits. Also, we've only seen 3 games. So those numbers are going to vary just because of the matchups they've seen. But football or Fantasy Data Points puts that out every week. So follow them on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Great resources there. And once I get a feel for how much man, how much zone, that'll change the corner. But nevertheless, corner has just got to be a position addressed by this Washington team. I went with Burke. He's playing well, fits the NFL mold for body build plus athleticism. I think comes with a little bit more man zone flexibility than those other 2 guys. Chargers here at 21. This is a layup. First time I've done it, so don't hit me too hard with this. But John Harbaugh drafts the Michigan guy. Yeah, I get it. Colston Loveland obviously would be a huge upgrade at the tight end position though, as just a pure pass catcher. He's also improved a ton as a run blocker this year, at least so far. So yeah, big thumbs up there from Colston Loveland. Pretty comfortably tight end 1 for me in this class. But kind of a fun group. And Tyler Warren, I'm not saying he's going to catch up to Loveland, but I think he's kind of making a strong push to be clear-cut number 2. Just kind of want to talk about him since, if memory serves, we're not going to get another tight end in this mock draft. To the New Orleans Saints here at 22. I'm going to go Michael Williams. Give him a guy that they can move across that defensive line. Brian Brzee hasn't totally happened. There's some plays, but not enough to warrant you to take that position off the draft board completely. And Granderson's a good player, but Cam Jordan's still getting up there in age, still TBD on Foskey and Turner. So Michael Williams, interior guy that's turned to edge. Yes, he's banged up now, but I'm seeing a guy who fits their MO of freaky athletic mold and athletic traits. And he's a guy who can play all across that D-line. So whether you need some additional juice next to Brzee or replacing Brzee, or you're still looking for that guy to replace Cam Jordan, somewhere I think Michael Williams will fit in the picture there for that Saints defense, which has been really, really good. So good on Dennis Allen winning some good games. Not this last week against Philly, though. Malachi Stark, no shade there. Malachi Starks is going to be the next pick here, going to the New York Jets. As complete a roster there is in football, would have loved to have Malachi come off the board way before 23. The safety position sometimes makes that tough, and sometimes position value just pushes you down the board a little bit too much in these mock drafts. But here, the Jets, the rich get richer. That defense gets that much more potent. They got a guy who can impact the run game, be an impact player in man, in zone, you name it. Malachi Starks as close to a full package safety as you're going to see. And that's one of the few areas of quote-unquote weakness for the Jets. It's one of the few areas where I think they can certainly get better. Detroit Lions here at 24. I'm going to stick with it. Princely Uman Mielen, he's been rock solid so far at Ole Miss. A team that hasn't really played stiff competition yet, but that will soon change. I think he'll be fine against that stiff competition. He was just fine in the SEC at Florida, so I'm not really worried about that. Marcus Davenport injury, that's kind of the name of his career, and then after him gets a little thin at that position. So I like Uman Mielen to partner up with Aiden Hutchinson. I thought about the guy who's now going to be the next pick here for the Philadelphia Eagles, Ashton Gelati, just a awesome power rusher. You could also flex inside, so kind of like that for the Eagles. Just passing downs. Maybe Jordan Davis isn't that guy you want out there, and you're trying to limit his snaps, make him an early downs dude. Gelati plus Carter, if you do decide to have him be a kind of jack of all trades, we'll play him outside, run downs, move him inside for pass situations. That'd be a lot of fun. But again, kind of to my previous point, I also think he'd be a great opposite complement to Aiden Hutchinson, power guy versus Hutchinson with that sick spin move. That'd be pretty great too. And then Uman Miel into the Eagles, could totally see these two picks flipped. Edge, albeit, all that to say edge, the two needs I'm kind of keying in on for those two teams. With what was on the board, speaking of with what's on the board, I am proud to say I finally got 2 running backs in the first round, folks. I think this is the draft class to make it happen. Obviously, I love Ashton Jeanty, and then Quinshon Judkins is not terribly far behind. And let's make it an all Buckeye backfield. Him and CJ Stroud, that sounds awesome. Mixon looked good week 1, but at his age, injuries are going to continue to be an issue, and you just don't know when that drop-off, even on the field, is going to come. Dameon Pierce, not a zone back. He needs to get traded to a gap scheme team. Judkins, much more of what they're looking for, and I think this is the guy that Mixon hands the torch to in that backfield. And him and Stroud, that'd be a whole lot of fun. Tampa Bay, next up on the clock here at pick number 27. It's going to be Takario Davis. He is just a Todd Bowles guy to me. Man press, big physical, great athlete. Checks all those Todd Bowles boxes. And also, like last time we saw this Bucs secondary, they were getting shredded by a rookie in Bo Nix. So obviously top of mind corner as a need for me. Takario Davis, I think that's a really nice fit next to Jamel Dean. All right, to the Buffalo Bills, sticking at corner. I'm going to have Siobhan Ravel off the board here. Last mock, he went 12, so he has fallen a little bit since the injury, ending his season. And it sucks, but again, like I said earlier, guys are coming back from this injury all the time as the same dude. And would it have been nice to see him play out the rest of the season? Yes, but his schedule also didn't have any crazy hard hitters. The question is going to be, can he get back in time? Can he heal up in time to get to the Senior Bowl? If so, that'd be a hell of a showcase. If not, he probably still goes and just does the interviews. They've been letting that happen over the last couple of years. Obviously not my decision to make there, but would be curious to see if they let him do that one way or another. But freaky athlete. And a big guy. And again, probably right now a little bit better of a man coverage corner because it's a little simpler there. And honestly, he could get a little bit better there. He just tends to play the receiver as a set of the ball. It feels like it's kind of a simplified game right now. But that's the thing. Like Sean McDermott is elevating the level of play for so many of these corners that you look at. Any other team, you'd say they need to get better there. But they're fitting that scheme perfectly. McDermott's just coaching them up the right way as well as their DC. Want to give him credit as well. And that's where I'm like, dude, well, if you got this insane size speed freak into that defense, what could you do with Siobhan Ravel? So a little bit of a projection, Don't think he's necessarily the best, most instinctual zone corner in the class, but could Sean McDermott get him there? If there's a coach who could do it, I think he is one of the top names that would come to mind. All right, Seattle Seahawks. I'm going to go Jonah Savaiinaea. And I still think he can play right tackle. We'll see with the arm length, all that sort of stuff. I've said 1,000 times now. But here for this one, let's just say he's going to play right guard, and then is your Abraham Lucas kind of contingency at right tackle. Christian Haynes played both sides or both guard spots. I do think he's better at right guard, and at UConn it certainly played out that way. Even at the Senior Bowl, we got snaps at both guard spots and center. Right guard felt like the spot where he was most comfortable. Maybe you force him over to the left guard spot with this pick. If that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. I'm not too worried about it. Like Tomlinson, not a long-term answer there. Center also something I thought about here, but wasn't quite going to go Parker Brailsford here at 29. It might be a little too light to go in the first round, but center, also something I considered for Seattle. The Kansas City Chiefs, I'm going to give them Tyleik Williams. Big physical freak, highly touted recruit, kind of the Ohio State MO, right? And I just think that number 2 D tackle spot, yeah, Chris Jones is awesome, but the depth behind him could certainly be better. And I think if Tyleik Williams is just a big monster who eats up space, plugs the run, that in and of itself brings a ton of value to this Chiefs team, who already stops the run really well. But I think Williams plus Bolton, that would be an insane duo, just taking away the middle run game, that inside stuff. And then you continue to move Chris Jones around that defensive line and find that matchup that he's going to tee off against week in and week out. And then the two teams, of course, we all saw coming, picking 31 and 32, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Minnesota Vikings. Fun fact, my favorite team, and then my best friend JT's favorite team, the Minnesota Vikings. So good time to be us, I suppose. But nevertheless, even with the Steelers' strong start, receiver 2 looks like a major need. And they're not putting Roman Wilson on the field, which is a little concerning for me. Feel like he's already better than Scotty Miller and, some of these other guys making plays, but Calvin Austin's played okay. Van Jefferson hasn't lost his game, so no complaints there. Maybe it ends up being Roman Wilson. Maybe it doesn't. But Isaiah Bond kind of feels like a souped-up version and a more athletic version, an even more twitchy version of Roman Wilson. And who knows, if you take Bond in the first round, maybe that's what nudges Arthur Smith to start using more 11 personnel. I would love that. That would be like the one thing I wish I could kind of nudge him closer towards. This year, I do feel like it's been a little bit more 11 personnel than his normal MO. I'd have to double check that though. But Bond, ton of speed, love the short area route running too. I feel like that's overlooked in his game. The burst, the suddenness, in and out of breaks, it's just awesome. May not have the ideal build, but he's also got more weight than guys like Ibuka and Stewart and some of these other Evan Stewart as well as Tez Johnson. So of these maybe a little smaller, slider built, he is the bigger of those guys. So I still like Isaiah Bond. He's kind of my receiver 3, receiver 4. It kind of goes back and forth between him and Hunter. I don't know. They're both awesome. So Steelers get Bond. Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to go with Jahdae Barron. So we're going back-to-back Longhorns here. Barron's just played everywhere, man. A little safety, a lot of slot the last 2 years. Now this year playing outside. And Minnesota just has so many pending free agents, right? Gilmore, Byron Murphy II, and one more name who's escaping me. But they're just going to need to add to that room, both in free agency and in the NFL draft. So whether Barron's their nickel the future or they continue to play him on the outside, I think no matter what, that secondary is going to need some work. And just because of how many holes and how many bodies you have to fill, odds are that's going to kind of fall into the NFL draft somewhere early on, somewhere at least in the top 100. I did it here at 32. We're on to the second round now, kicking things off with the Tennessee Titans. We'll be in with a Buckeye, Emeka Egbuka. I think this is your Tyler Boyd replacement there in the slot. Boyd walks, Egbuka, sharp route runner. May not be the biggest guy to play outside, so let's keep him in his home, in the slot, take advantage of how son of a route runner he is. Cincinnati Bengals are up next. We've already seen what this offense looks like, with just Jamar Chase, and Jamar Chase is awesome. When T. Higgins is gone, Alec Ayumanner, I think, would be a really fun addition to this team and have him be that outside big body jump ball dude to replace Higgins. And I think you let Andre Yoshivas, he's looked pretty good. You can play him inside and out, and honestly, you just rotate him and Chase, right? If you want Yoshivas to be the guy that's matched up on the outside corner, Chase moves in the slot. I love that. I'm also the guy who values slot more than anybody and wants best receivers to play out of the slot, i.e. CeeDee Lamb. See what the Cowboys should do with him. I know he's playing some outside too. But also just maybe the fact that you're moving them both spots, that helps. Anyways, I digress. And then opportunities where you want Chase on the outside, you want to have him against that outside corner. I think Yoshivas has shown that he can play in the slot. Anyways, a little bit of a breakdown there for the Bengals and what I think Ayumanner could have that wide receiver room looking like for next year. But I've had him go in the first round in some of these mocks, so get him at 34, solid value. To the Jacksonville Jaguars we go. I'm going to go with Josh Simmons. I'm actually pretty surprised that he's this low on the mock draft database. Highly touted recruit. He's been awesome at left tackle so far this year at Ohio State. The movement skills are fantastic. He's already a high-level run blocker. I think with a little bit more work in pass pro, a little bit of refinement with his hands, this guy could become a really comfortable every down starter at left tackle. Something that the Jaguars are certainly looking for long-term, as Cam Robinson is not that long-term starter. And you could have a world where you flip Anton Harrison back to left tackle where he played at college, but he's also got 2 years of NFL experience at right tackle. You might not want to mess that up. Draft Simmons, play him on the left side, keep Harrison on the right side. Giants on the clock here at 36. I'm going to go with Tate Ratledge. I think this is just your plug-and-play right guard upgrade. Sean Ryan's played both guard spots, so you play him over at left guard, and boom, we're feeling a lot better with that. You go quarterback in the first round. Let's go ahead and protect that investment. And then you have Jermaine Luminor for another year. He's not been awesome, but he's just like a serviceable average tackle right now. And then hopefully Evan Neal figures it out. But if not, again, you still have Luminor. You could also go tackle here. It was just, you could go Ariante Ursary. Belton's a left tackle. We'll talk more about him later. You could go with Cornelius here, but we're going to have him come in a little bit later. Didn't love the value of him necessarily at 38. So Tate Ratledge it is. All right. To the Miami Dolphins at to the New England Patriots. I'm getting ahead of myself as I look at my sheet. Sorry, if you're wondering why I keep looking over, that's just where my I'm trying a new setup here and where I put my notes and whatnot. Anyways, New England Patriots, as promised, not done going to the offensive line. I'm going to go with Blake Miller, big guy, 6'6", 315, agile on his feet, right tackle at Clemson. With Banks, Miller, it's clear. I just don't think, and I think Mike Onwenu is probably a better guard. Like, I think he can be a serviceable tackle, but this team would be benefited by having that level of guard player that I think Onwenu is. So let's move Onwenu inside. I know it's doubling down on tackles. I know it's not sexy, but have you watched the New England Patriots this year? Pats fans, sound off. Let me know what you think. From what I see on Twitter, I think you guys would be down for this. Cleveland Browns next up at 38. This is where we're going to have Ariante Ursary come off the board. He has had some snaps at right tackle, but this would probably necessitate DeJuan Jones going back over to the right side. But if that's the case, so be it. It's where he was last year. I think he'd be just fine. Move Jones over to right tackle. Ursary is your left tackle, kind of replacement for Jedrick Wills, who kind of continues to be more of the same. And like I said earlier, like you go into the season and you're like, the Browns offensive line is always good. Hasn't necessarily played that way this year. Hasn't been abysmal, but it just hasn't been like awesome like we're used to. So might be time to go ahead and keep putting investments into that. I'm glad they got Zach Zencher. I do think that is one of their starters of the future. Hopefully Ariante Ursary would be as well. Miami Dolphins here at 39. I'm going to go with Walter Nolan, former, I believe, 5-star recruit. He might have just been a 4-star, but if my memory serves, and from what I remember about Walter Nolan's profile, he was a 5-star prospect coming out. Only one game so far at Ole Miss. Was a pretty awesome game against Wake Forest, so that's awesome to see. Nevertheless, guy that should be a high-level run defender with also a ton of athletic juice to be potential pass rush force. But right now, probably a better run defender than I would say pass rusher. But I think you're fine with that right now if you're Miami. Just looking for a running mate long-term with Zach Sealer. Calais Campbell just can't play forever, no matter how much the NFL continues to sign him to contracts, team by team, just use him as a mercenary. But I think Nolan plus Sealer, that could be your inside tandem of the future for Miami. All right, back-to-back Bears picks, and look, back-to-back offensive line picks. I'm going to go with Donovan Jackson first. He plays left guard right now. This would need Tevin Jenkins to move over to right guard. But keep in mind, he started his career at right tackle, so for me, it never made sense for why they flipped him over to left guard. And to me, he is the better of the two guys, him and Nate Davis. I'd rather keep Jenkins around. And then, buddy, they need a center like no freaking other. Parker Brailsford, to me, the top guy in this class. If he can get up to 290, I think second round is certainly live for him. If he comes in that 275, even 280 range, he's going to be an outlier. There's going to be a conversation. But I think the movement skills are elite. We'll see if they keep Shane Waldron around. I know he's not super exciting right now and not doing a whole lot to pump up Bears fans right now. But they do keep him around. It's going to be that zone scheme. Brailsford, his movement skills will certainly help out with that a ton. But I'm doubling down on interior offensive line, right? It's not good enough right now. And you got Kieran Megaji there behind Braxton Jones as a potential replacement for him. Left tackle next year. So yeah, could be a whole lot of new on that Bears offensive line if they do something like this next April. All right, let's get to the Baltimore Ravens. We're actually going to go on a little bit of an interior offensive line run here. Tyler Booker. Look, I might have been wrong on Andrew Voorhees. He's still young. He's got, 3 career starts under his belt. Plenty of time for him to turn around. We've seen numerous offensive linemen. Slow start. Hell, Tyler Linderbaum, first 4 games of his career, not his best, as you'd imagine. And then now top 3, top 5 center in the NFL pretty comfortably. So I'm not done on Voorhees, but I know it's been the biggest need. I know a lot of Ravens fans are saying, hey, guard. We have got to invest in that position. I think Tyler Booker would be a step in the right direction, specifically at left guard. And then you could figure out Voorhees versus Falele. It at least addresses one of those 2 starters. To the Denver Broncos, I'm going to go Wyatt Milam here. He's been rock solid at West Virginia so far this year. And that's going against solid competition. Maybe not any elite edge rushers, but that's going to come over the course of the rest of their schedule. But so far, so good. Size, athletic, feet skills are certainly there. Hands can certainly be a little bit better, but that's just kind of a trend with these college guys. But right now, he's winning with his athletic mold and his frame well enough for me to think, hey, the Broncos could use him as their Garrett Bowles replacement for Garrett Bowles, who is soon to be a free agent. Sometimes words just come into your head and not quite the right order. All right. Anyways, Carolina Panthers here at 44. I'm going to go Jack Sawyer. I'm a big Jack Sawyer fan, and this team's edge group is rough, to say the least. And to be honest, if they're not going to be competing for the playoffs, they should trade Jadeveon Clowney to the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals need him. There's no need for him to stay in Carolina other than the fact that maybe he wants to stay home, I guess. But Jack Sawyer, 5-star recruit, super good athlete, been really productive. Slowly but surely, he's figuring out as a pass rusher. We saw over the last 4 games last year for Ohio State, and it's carried over into this season. So really excited about what the prospects are for Jack Sawyer. Arizona Cardinals are next up at 45. This is where we're going to have my boy Cornelius come off the board. I'm still trying to find a great pronunciation for that first name, and I'm a little too scared to get it wrong right now. So Cornelius, right tackle for the Cardinals. And hey, look, I don't want to be the guy to say I told you so, but I told you so. Jonah Williams out for the year. Also, when he was healthy, he's just not that good. He's probably more of a guard. All these things we've been saying since he came out of Alabama. He just hasn't been good, especially as a right tackle. And then Kelvin Beachum is not your long-term piece. He's just kind of a, make do. He's an average starter right now. So, yeah. And I'm not saying Cornelius would day one be the guy. You could still have Jonah Williams at least start next year at right tackle if he's coming back from the injury at 100%. And then maybe buy Cornelius some time. I would actually prefer that, even as much as I don't think Jonah Williams is someone you should be bragging about as a starter. Have him start first half of next year, and then let's buy time for Cornelius to get really ramped up and ready to go, become an NFL starter. But I do think this could be that right tackle of the future. I really like his movement skills and his size. Really nice compliment opposite of Paris Johnson long term. San Francisco here at 46. I'm going to go Jonah Monheim here. They have him as a tackle because he did play a tackle at USC last year. He's playing center this year, though. So because of that guard or center flexibility, I kind of want him to be the Aaron Banks replacement, but he also could be your long-term starter at center. And sometimes, like, when you have a rough interior offensive line, just getting that center figured out makes everything else kind of fall into order. Not that those guys become elite, but they go from, like, replaceable to, like, okay, they're not that bad. We can make do with them. And in a NFL hard cap, like, there's only so many points to go around, only so many slider points you can devy out to that roster. So if Monheim just kind of elevates what's around him, Pooney's already, I think, a really solid starter long term. But if Monheim at center makes Banks better, cool, we can work with that. But I could also see a world where Monheim just becomes that left guard of the future. And again, Banks does not fit that blocking scheme, so I think it's time for them to move on from that left guard spot. Let's go to the Atlanta Falcons here at 47. Something that I found surprising when doing this. Josiah Stewart. Where are you, my man? 160? All I would have to say is, did you watch Michigan's last game? He won't be staying there for much longer. When they update this big board, he will be much higher. Tons of juice, like a 95.7 pass rush grade coming out of that game for Michigan. I mean, their defensive line controlled the trenches for sure. Like, that looked like, oh, USC's been playing in the Pac-12. They don't have Big Ten offensive linemen. It definitely looked like that. But that's nothing to hold against Josiah Stewart. He was the best player in that game. And I also think Graham played really well, but I think Stewart was the standout player of that game. And definitely a guy to keep watching. That first step juice is just so fun. Super explosive guy. The bend is coming along. He's still getting refined as a pass rusher, but you see the traits. You see kind of the building blocks for him to become a really solid player. I think here in the second round, this is where you take a chance on those athletic guys. Let's get to the Indianapolis Colts. Here at pick number 48, I'm going to go with TJ Sanders, interior defensive lineman from South Carolina. Been a really good run defender, but also some juice as a pass rusher. And just kind of like what I talked about in my last mock, Grover Stewart coming up on a year where you could cut him, and I think it's saved like $10 million against the cap. He's going to be a 32-year-old defensive tackle. Age and that price point might be someone you want to move on from. Let him hit the market, see what is out there. And maybe then, once you see, hey, there's probably not a huge demand for a 32-year-old tackle at $10+ million a year, maybe then you bring him back on a super cheap deal. But for the time being, TJ Sanders plus DeForest Buckner, I like that. It's probably a position group that, like, low-key, they need to add a little bit of youth to. I know they got Abe Adebawore there from Northwestern. Freaky combine showing, but the on-field stuff, I haven't noticed him a whole lot. I haven't seen a high snap count in PFF when going week by week, checking out the grades. So, may not be that guy. So instead, let's go ahead and get TJ Sanders. Dallas Cowboys are up next. We go Trey Harris, like I said earlier, for Uman Mielen. It hasn't been a hard schedule, but Trey Harris has looked damn good. Size checks that box. Speed definitely checks that box. Hands have been pretty consistent this year, too. I think that's enough juice, especially at the top of the route on deep routes, to where he can be a high-level separator as a deep route runner. So this is your Brendan Coach replacement. Move on. Get younger, get cheaper at that position. And I liked what I saw from Jalen Tolbert on Thursday night. So maybe that's the three-headed monster of the future. Tolbert, Harris, and, of course, CeeDee Lamb. Green Bay Packers next up. I'm going to go with Jalen Walker here. I get the sense that Packers, as an organization, like the guys they have. As a viewer of Packers content, as a viewer of NFL product, I think it's a position they could certainly get better at. And Jalen Walker is kind of what people want Harold Perkins to be, this off-ball linebacker who's also a great blitzer, can be used off the edge. Jalen Walker's kind of been more of that. And, of course, Perkins hurt for the rest of the year. I'm not even entirely sure he does declare. Might be smart for him to just stay at LSU, use his time to bulk up, try to get to 235, and then by next year just play edge full-time. Like, he might just need to, say, hey, cool, this is life telling me time to make the Abdul Carter adjustment. I need to bulk up, need to get to that weight. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe he does declare, but too far out to tell. Next up, the Vegas Raiders corner is just a spot they have got to get better at. Jabbar Muhammad, athletic guy. Yeah, a little bit small at 5'10", but I like the athletic traits there. And Jack Jones, in the words of Antonio Pierce, making business decisions. So the Raiders are as well. So I think that outside corner spot's just one where they could just use an injection of talent. Muhammad, I think he's a second-round guy right now. So, yeah, going to send him out to Vegas to revamp that secondary. Let's move on to the Chargers here at 52. Pump this into my veins. Please make it happen. Part of it is because I have Kamani Vidal in every fantasy league except for my fucking dynasty league, pardon my language. I don't know how that happened. The one league where I definitely want him the most. So because of that, going a little spiteful here, and I could see where Harbaugh and Greg Roman just cannot resist this running back class. And, dude, Amari Hampton is downhill, north-south running style and a Greg Roman offense. Are you kidding me? pump that into my veins. I already think Kamani Vidal has more juice than Gus Edwards. We might see him after the week 5 bye. I think Hampton's an even better version of Kamani Vidal. So maybe a little less, wiggle. I think Vidal does have some like tight area, make a guy miss juice that Hampton probably doesn't, but Hampton just does it by lowering his shoulder and getting through that way. So, two or multiple ways to skin a cat, right? So, Marion Hampton to the Chargers, I'm just like praying that this can happen because I think that would be #fun to watch. New Orleans Saints next up at 53. Back to the offensive line. Clay Webb, former 5-star recruit, was in a Power 5 conference, then transferred out, went to Jacksonville State. He's been good. This year's been a little up and down, so I'm hoping to find some more consistency. But for the time being, I'm comfortable putting him in the second round for a team that can certainly use an upgrade on that interior offensive line. Cesar Ruiz has been great. He's hurt right now, but I think that's your center of the future, especially if Clint Kubiak's going to keep running this wide zone stuff. But I do think Clay Webb could be a potential left guard for them moving forward. Maybe even right guard, but just a guard in general for this team. That I think that's one of the weak spots on that O-line right now. Then we get back to the Jets at 54. I'm going to go Landon Jackson. Just a power rusher, hard edge setter, really good high motor, run defender. And I just think edge, especially with Hassan Reddick. There have been times where you notice, I kind of wish this team had one more guy, right? And it's kind of where it's like, man, could you have kept Carl Lawson around? Even though if he's not great and Hassan Reddick's better, but, he's not there, so he's holding out. So, could you have kept Lawson around? I don't know. It's tough. At that price point, probably not. But there have been a couple times where you're like, one more guy. They need one more guy. And I think Jackson's just a little bit different of a style of rusher than they have currently in the roster. Also might carry enough weight to where passing downs, you could play him inside. Might be able to do that too, which is a lot of fun to talk about. Thinking about Landon Jackson next to Quinn Williams in the 3rd and 13. That could be #fun to watch as well. Last time I'm going to use that hashtag out loud. Let's get on to the Detroit Lions. Not necessarily the biggest area of need, but I do think, man, one more wide receiver, especially a big body guy. Not that J-Mo and Amon-Ra are small, but 6'4", 210, that's the different body type. And also with Nick Anderson's speed to stretch the field, him plus Jamison Williams as 2 legit speed threats. It only makes the underneath middle of the field that much more open for guys like Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So it's just that much more potency, and it makes it that much harder to defend this team. And so yeah, I'm here for it. I think Nick Anderson, late second round, I feel like it's a solid value for him. Let's get to the unfortunate for Anderson, though, with a QB change there at Oklahoma. Don't know how much production he's going to have. Might be a guy that has to go to a senior circuit, senior showing of some sort, Shrine Bowl, Senior Bowl, something like that, to kind of showcase what he can truly do. Washington Commanders here at 56. I'm going to go JT to a Maloau. This team just needs to get more edge options. I just don't know if there's enough long-term pieces. JTT's been kind of underwhelming throughout his Ohio State career, but I do think a team somewhere in this area is going to say, hey, there's a multiple athlete there. There's a highly touted recruit there. He didn't get the right coaching, or I don't know. Ohio State seems like they've got all the resources, all the coaching you might want. They've had a lot of hella good edges come out of that class or that group. So I don't know. Program hasn't had any other issues with other edge rushers, but maybe an NFL team tells himself and the chance to fix JTT or elevate JTT to his superstar potential. I just think you look at the bodies that Washington has now, you got to address that position. With JTT, Patrick Payton, I don't necessarily love either one of the guys right now, so just went with JTT for the time being. Houston Texans at 57. I'm going to go with the Godfather, Dante Corleone. Interior defensive line, one of the few spots where I think this team can get better. Corleone, much more of a run defender than I think a pass rusher right now, but that's okay. That's kind of what they have right now. But ultimately, I think Corleone, obviously younger than those guys, so that's the long-term piece that could be that guy, plug in the middle, stopping the run up the middle of that defense for the years to come. But also maybe there's just inherently him younger. Maybe there's just some natural upside there. It's a pass rusher that they just don't have currently on the roster with Amelie Collins, Afolo Fodakasi. We know what those guys are. And ultimately, I think Corleone might do their job better too. Let's go on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here at 58. Get to know this name. It's another name that's going to be rising up boards. Crazy, though. Josiah Stewart behind Mike Green. But get to know the name Mike Green. 6'4", 245 pounds probably. I think he's listed at 248 on Marshall's website. But he's probably closer to 245, maybe 242. But coming off of a couple of awesome games. He's been great all year for Marshall. But last 2 games, really good against Tech. Okay, cool. Tech's maybe not living up to expectations. What did he do against Michigan? How about a pass rush grade just under 80, overall grade right around that same mark? That's a hell of a game. And that's a game to do it against, too. Ohio State, you're going to have eyes on you. That was a big showcase for him. So love to see that he handled that jump up and level of competition and still played a really solid contest. Edge right now, I think it's probably time to move on from Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Yaya Diaby, Mike Green, probably a guy in free agency that's going to be your trio next year in Tampa Bay. Philadelphia Eagles, this is where we're going to have the conversation about Anthony Belton. He continues to play really good football there at NC State. Really like him on the run, moving forward as a run blocker. I think when he gets his weight out in front, he's really awesome. Still could probably use some improvement as a pass protector. That's kind of the advantage here. I think you just draft him, and also we're going to flip him over to the right tackle spot, so you would need a year of buffer there. But Jeff Stoutland, need I say more? Jeff Stoutland. In the words of Jordan Mailata, when he's listing his college, Jeff Stoutland University. When a man who, rugby background, did play college football, that's why. But when a man's saying Jeff Stoutland University, you know you've got a special offensive line coach. He's obviously on the NFL Mount Rushmore for that. So I think if there's a guy that could flip Belton over to the right side and get him to be that Lane Johnson replacement, that's the dude. So I like the upside for Belton. I think this is the place I think this is the guy and the place where he could go where Belton hits his best. And of the guys available, this is one of those upsides where I'm like, that's the dude to try to replace Lane Johnson with what's available, of course. Then we get to the Buffalo Bills. This was just too good for me to pass on. Kevin Winston Jr., they just need to get better at safety. Like Damar Hamlin got that interception the other day. That's great. That's all well and good. And that other safety spot, though, I do think is a place where they can get better. Winston Jr. should have been off the board before this, so to get him at 60, great value in my opinion. All right, let's go to the Kansas City Chiefs. We're gonna keep throwing, darts at the board here, and a name to know: Charles Grant, probably one of the best non-FBS players in the country right now. He's been rock solid at William & Mary, size profile that matches the NFL as well. And I know they've drafted a left tackle back-to-back years now, Wanya Morris, Kingsley Suamataia, but also Juwan Taylor. I think that's a contract you're probably ready to move on from. And I can see a world where Suamataia plays right tackle next year, Wanya plays left tackle, and then you have Grant here as your kind of developmental swing tackle. So do you want to do that in the second round? For the Chiefs roster, where it's currently at, where it's constructed, I don't think it's a bad idea because, what could go wrong? To me, it's injuries in the secondary just deplete you there, and all of a sudden that becomes a problem spot. Or there's so many injuries on the O-line that, you just can't run your offense as is. So I'm just trying to, future-proof where there could potentially be issues. Also, there's a world where, Suamataia or Wanya Morris doesn't get any better, and they're looking for a tackle one way or another to be a starter. All right, to the Seattle Seahawks. A guy to potentially replace Tyler Lockett. I'm going to go with Deion Burks here. Not the biggest need. Seahawks fans, let me know what you would want to do here at 62. I'm curious to hear your input. But again, if there's a guy to replace Lockett, I think Burks brings a lot of that to the table. And that's Ryan Grubb, pass-happy offense, a lot of 3-receiver sets. I just want to keep a strength to strength, get younger, get cheaper at the position, however. Let's get to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to go with Sebastian Castro here. To me, one of maybe the best slot corner in this class. Cam Sutton, when he comes back from his suspension, will probably be, hybrid outside corner when there's only two corners. They don't move inside when they go to nickel. But also, that's not necessarily a guy, given the charges he's been hit with, that I really want to have around. So I'm just personally ready to move on from that. And let's draft a nickel. This does leave outside corner as a question, but between Castro in the slot and what's currently available, I like Quincy Riley, but it hasn't been an awesome season per se. Hairston, maybe. It's not necessarily an outside corner that I'm jumping at quite the way I am with Sebastian Castro as the slot. To the Buffalo Bills, this is where I'm going to have Patrick Payton come off the board. Again, I know I don't love him, but he does have his fans. And also, I think the Bills have done a good job bringing A.J. Epinesa along, more than I thought maybe was possible. In addition to what they've done with Greg Rousseau, someone who I did like a ton coming out of Miami. But, man, I feel like they've really hit, the high, I don't want to say high side of variance, but the high range of outcomes for what Greg Rousseau could be, especially given this is still his first contract. So, been really impressed with that development. Maybe they can do the same with Patrick Payton. Von Miller's been awesome, but just given his age, it's hard to imagine that's going to maintain for another 2 years. Maybe he can do it one more. Maybe, but I've got a feeling this is probably his last dance, especially if the Bills can make it pretty far in the playoffs, maybe even win Lombardi. He probably hangs it up. But I'm going ahead and I'm showcasing every pick one more time. Would love to hear your thoughts in this mock draft. I also want to know, I try to be more conscious about my level, my pace of talking. I know it's still probably fast, but I am trying to be a little bit slower, a little more conscious, take some more breaths, take some more breaks. I can certainly do better. But because of that, I'm also trying to keep these mocks at or under an hour, so I'm sacrificing information that I wouldn't normally say if I was talking a million miles a minute and I'm talking like this, So what do you think that's a fine trade-off for you? Would you be okay with me saying less but talking slower and maybe understanding more of what I'm saying? Or kind of off of that, would you be okay with an hour and a half mock draft? That might be what it would take for me at a slower pace to get out all my normal thoughts. I could probably do with saying a little bit less anyways, but I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, what you think about this one as it's currently right about 50 minutes as I look at my OBS screen for this recording. So what do you think? Less information, slower pace, is that better for you? And of course, I want to hear your thoughts on this mock draft down below in the comment section. Who's your favorite team? Did you like the picks I gave your squad? Who went too high? Who went too low? Let me hear those down below. I'm going to do my best to respond to as many comments as I can this weekend, and then may not be able to do it Monday through Friday, but I'm going to try to get back to you next weekend, hopefully with another mock too, but I'm going to try to respond to as many comments, or at least heart as many comments as possible. Enough rambling for me for one day. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day, and until next time, my name is Tej, and I am signing off.